Well, hello again. I am excited to introduce Partners in Print. Um, Partners in Print, sorry, just a sec. Partners in Print brings people together by using old printing presses to amplify new voices, share knowledge, and spark creativity. Seattle School of Visual Concepts, SVC, spawned a thriving letterpress program and a beloved community of printers. And the secret to their success is community engagement, a respect for craft, and a focus on collaboration. The legacy of that program lives on in Partners in Print today. So I'm happy to introduce Jenny Wilkson and Sukhie Patel, and feel free to take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting us to participate in Makeready. As a new organization, this is the perfect, way to introduce ourselves, to reintroduce ourselves, we should say. I'm Jenny Wilkson, and I was the founder of the letterpress program at the School of Visual Concepts. And now I'm on the leadership team of Partners in Print, which is the evolution of that program.
And I'm Sukhie Patel, and I'm also on the leadership team alongside Jenny. So yeah, thank you so much for inviting us to participate. It's a bit ironic to be doing a studio tour because for the first time in 20 years, we don't actually have a formal studio space anymore, which is a pandemic story that we'll get into a little bit later. But I wanted to share a little bit about us. We're a letterpress arts nonprofit, and letterpress exists at sort of between two poles. So the first one being very Gutenberg-y and really rooted in labor and in industry. And as printing technology has evolved, these presses have become scarce, and letterpress has evolved into a more fine art printmaking practice. And PIP exists pretty squarely in between these two poles because we're really committed to ensuring public access to presses for anyone who might be curious about learning these age-old skills for whatever purpose that might be. So whether that's political or artistic, or just to escape from the digital world and a desire to do something analog and tactile. So that's why we exist. And we're really excited about Makeready for kind of a nerdy reason. And I promise not to do the thing that like high school English students do when they're writing an essay and they start with like a Merriam-Webster definition of Makeready, because nobody wants that. But Makeready has a really special place in all letterpress printmakers' hearts. So Jenny's going to show us a little bit more about what Makeready means to us.
So in the letterpress world, or pretty much any print practitioner, Makeready is the process of getting your type to the right height, getting everything printing perfectly, adjusting impression, inking, whatever special voodoo magic is underneath the blocks that raises them to a height so they print beautifully. And so I'm going to be at the other camera, and I'm actually going to be doing some Makeready in the background. We're doing a poster slash book for you guys, slash zine. So this is what I slapped in the bed of the press last night, and this is the poorly printed imperfect version that needs Makeready. And then I'm going to now do some Makeready to get this overprinted in a bright yellow, and that'll be the book. And you'll be able to find these at the pop-up shop for free, but you can fold up your own little Makeready zine from Partners in Print. So you can go ahead and keep the screen split, and I'll be doing that, and Sukhie will be chatting, and yeah, thank you.
So while Jenny is showing us in real time what Makeready is and how we employ it, I hope you'll indulge me in a slightly more metaphorical interpretation of Makeready. So, and that is how our organization has evolved over the years. So as Jenny expressed, Makeready is all the prep work that you do to make a print. And I think about it metaphorically as all of the prep work that we've done to become who we are becoming now, and making do with imperfect material or an imperfect situation, in this case, COVID, and seeking out the support that we need to become the best version of our community-driven arts organization that we can be. So I want to share about where we came from and how that's evolved over the pandemic, and also where we see ourselves going. And I want to invite you into the partnership portion of our name, Partners in Print, because we are fundamentally an organization that exists to serve all of you. So if there's one thing that I hope that you take away from our talk today, is a spark of inspiration, perhaps, like a seed that's being planted that will grow over time, and that gets you thinking about how we as an organization can possibly partner with you as individuals or as an organization if you're representing an organization. So you may know us from our prior iteration at the School of Visual Concepts as the letterpress program there. And SVC is predominantly like a graphic design and like professional skills building school. And we were kind of the hands-on element where people could learn about typography and printmaking in real time. And as anyone who has lived in Seattle for any amount of time knows, the city has been evolving at a really rapid rate. So just by nature of where we were located in the heart of South Lake Union, we were a single-story building at the heart of the tech industry with skyscrapers going up all around us. And we realized that these were constraints that we were going to have to evolve with. And operating within constraints, to go on a bit of a detour, is kind of at the heart of letterpress, because we're working with equipment that has been around sometimes for hundreds of years, and that has limitations. And we found that those constraints always lead us to be even more creative with our solution making and also with our artistic process. So I think we already had some of that muscle in exercise prior to COVID arriving. So we used to have an in-person studio space where people would come and learn letterpress. COVID arrived, and suddenly SVC had to shift all of their classes to online classes. And printmaking doesn't really translate, one might think, that well to online classes. But the forcing function of the pandemic actually helped us invent a long distance letterpress program. That's what we called it, LDL, which were Zoom classes for letterpress. And suddenly there were so many new opportunities that we hadn't even imagined before, namely increased accessibility. SVC was kind of hard to get to. People with different mobility and transportation restrictions weren't able to get there. And suddenly we were able to not only invite printers or curious printers from all over the world into our studio spaces, we were also able to showcase instructors and artists as teaching guests on these classes from quite literally all over the world. So that was really exciting for us. And that was really the glue that held our community together in those early months of the pandemic. As the pandemic continued, SVC was forced to break their lease because you can't rent out a single-story building in South Lake Union during a pandemic. It's just not a thing an arts organization can do. And they were so generous in that they donated all of their presses to us under the caveat that we had to move them out by the end of the month. If anyone has ever moved a press, a single press, you might know that that is no small feat. Behind us, here's a press that weighs several thousand pounds. And we had many of these along with many type cabinets to move. And our community really pulled together to be innovative and figure out how we were going to get these out of that space. And the solution we came up with, once again, was really culturally aligned to our core values, which is that we want to further accessibility to letterpress. We want to reduce gatekeeping, however that looks. And we want to make sure that these aren't historical artifacts that are just kept in museums. These are meant to be used. These are meant to be working presses. So how do we keep the presses of the people? And our solution was that we were going to create foster homes for these presses. And we were able to move them into the homes of a variety of different printers in our community so that they could continue to use them through, over the course of the pandemic and some collaborative projects, as well as eventually open up their studio spaces to more people to come in and print when it was safe to do so. And the last sort of part of this journey, or this chapter of our journey, I would say, is that we found a new virtual home as a nonprofit under Shunpike. And we're really fortunate to have found them and found their fiscal sponsorship. It really helped us move on to the next chapter and get established. So here we are today. I also wanted to share some of the programming that we've been able to continue. Jenny, are you?
Yeah.
Specifically a program called Words of Courage, which is a partnership between Seattle Arts, Seattle Arts and Lectures, SAL, the Writers in the School program, and Children's Hospital. So we're going to pivot over to Jenny's camera for now to talk about that.
Okay, so I'll take a little break from my Makeready, but you guys are getting an idea of where I was going with that. I'm leveling all of our pieces of type so that they print properly. And so behind us, we've got various portfolios representing 10 years of collaborating with Seattle Arts and Lectures and their Writers in the Schools program, specifically stationed at Children's Hospital. And 2 writers in residence there, Sierra Nelson and Ann Teplick, have been working closely with patients. And over the course of the year, they come up with some amazing poetry. And once a year, printers now from PIP gather and we select poems, we divvy them up, and we take a few months to print them in poetry broadside form. And these collections are put into these beautifully bound portfolios, like Sukhie was holding up, that go to the patients' families. They go to Children's Hospital, they're on display there. They're in display when SAL has in-person events. They're used for fundraising at the various organizations. So it's just been a super meaningful and wonderful partnership for our letterpress community, and something that quite frankly was like the reason why we really needed to continue as partners in print after we lost our space. It was this was going to be the way that we were going to stay together and have a goal. So we did it even in the middle of the pandemic last year, and this year we're kicking off in Zoom, and we're printing in various studios all over Seattle, and then we're hoping that we'll actually convene in person and celebrate. So we'd love to read a couple of these because they're really, really meaningful. Go ahead, Sukhie.
All right, so this is by Nandi Kulisua, who's age 4. I believe this was written in collaboration with Sierra Nelson, part of the WITS program. The Bad Bunny. I'm hiding in my hiding place. I want Bunny to get out of here because I don't want Bunny anymore. He fell over. Get him out of here. Kick him out of the room. Put him out the door. I'm very mad at him because he jumped on me and that's why I bit him. He can't come home with me because he's staying here. I don't want my Bunny because he's always pushing me around. I said, stop it. And then I said, why don't you find a new place with no people who are mad? I've just got to throw my Bunny out of here. I don't want any animals, not big or small or really tiny or really, 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 really tiny. But Mama can have tea with me. I love her so much. I want to kiss her on the cheek.
We chose this poem to read as an example, first of all, of some of the really, really little kids that get to participate in this program. When Sierra works with the really little ones, it's often in palliative care, and this project takes on this whole other level of meaning because we're creating pieces that are more of a legacy building project for the child and as a gift for the family. And so, you know, our client, so to speak, isn't always the child, it's, you know, it's the family and how, you know, we imagine that they're going to want to put this up on their wall and celebrate their child. This one, we're not going to read because I think those words really pop out at you. And we love this example, not only because it's showing, you know, the artifacts of the pieces of type that are used to make it, but this one speaks really plainly to how these are a vehicle for self-expression for these children who their sense of self outside of their medical diagnosis is really eroded. You know, after spending so much time at Children's, this is a way that they can say like, hey, I'm a person, I'm a poet, I'm now a published poet. So anyway, this is a really great example of that. And then we also wanted to show Omar Shamdeen's poem, which is very special. I see John Barry is here on the call. So Juliet Shen designed this one, and she used Mamoun Sakal's Arabic typeface. And we do a lot of translation poems over the years. So we've done poems in Arabic and Spanish and Lushootseed and Braille. So this project really amplifies voices that are, you know, wouldn't ordinarily get their voices, you know, printed on a letterpress, right? So yeah, great poem. Do we want to read another? Or?
I think we're good.
We're good. Okay. All right. What's next, Sukhie?
Did you want to talk a little bit about One River?
Sure. And we didn't say this at the beginning, but we're not checking the chat because we're too busy talking. So if there is a question, you should just unmute and ask it so that we can answer it on the fly. Can somebody catch us up? Was there anything we needed to clarify so
I just had
far?
a quick question about the last broadsheet that you shared. If those were all
No?
entirely printed on
Okay.
letterpress, or how the
All right, silence.
color were done.
Okay,
No,
thanks
there wasn't
everybody.
silence. Tom
Okay,
was-
so there's another publishing project that I think Makeready folks would be interested in hearing about. And that is the work that we do with designers in residence. So we had Claudia Castor-Luna as our designer in residence back at the School of Visual Concepts for 2 years. And when she joined us, she wasn't yet the poet laureate. And then she was, and then she got really busy. And so what was a 1-year term turned into a 2-year term, but it was all worthwhile because over the course of that term, she became inspired by various book arts examples at the University of Washington Special Collections. And she decided she wanted to write a poem and she wanted the form of the book to reflect that poem. And as she was traveling around the state as the poet laureate, she made a lot of stops in like tribal lands along the Columbia River. And she became very inspired by the river itself as a metaphor. And she wrote this epic poem that takes like 10 minutes for her to read. And every time she reads it, she gets a standing ovation. It's a really fantastic poem, and I hope you guys get to experience this. But let's see. So on at SVC, we letterpress printed One River, and we mounted a Kickstarter in order to fund it. And then, so this was like the fine press edition, but then we also did a more accessible paperback edition, same paper, but offset printed. And I had this job printed at Security Press. And when I first got it bid out, I said, oh, it's basically a really long, like Z-fold pamphlet. And they're like, oh yeah, we do those all the time. That'll be no problem. But it ended up being way more complicated because, as everybody here knows, like when you are doing a book you know, you want it to behave like a really nice, you know, solid brick of a book. You don't want it to pop up. You don't want, you know, any of the folds to stick out more than they should. There was kind of a unique way that it needed to fold. And anyway, they did a great job and they really rolled with the punches. And it was actually the connections that I made by working on One River with Security Press that really saved our butt when it came time to move all of our equipment, because it was Security Press who is donating storage for a lot of the type and teaching tools of our letterpress program until we can, you know, get it back out into the world again.
And these are in every library, including tribal libraries across the state of Washington.
Yeah, every library district.
Yeah,
so you can request it. You can access this book in libraries.
And if you're curious about where you can see the Children's Hospital broadsides, they do rotate around through all the Seattle Public Libraries over the course of a year. And I think they are also available at the Seattle Art Museum.
Yeah, so the libraries have been closed, right, for over a year now. And, you know, there haven't been any Seattle Arts and Lectures in-person events where people would normally interact with these broadsides. There have not been any readings at Children's Hospital or year-end readings for writers in the schools. And so what we decided to do over the past year is we actually got all 10 years worth of broadsides. So there's like at least 200 broadsides that we had to get professionally scanned at ColorWorks here in Seattle. And we created a online repository for the project, and it never existed before. Like, the project was always historically difficult to describe. You know, there's so many moving pieces and partners. And now we have wordsofcourage.org. It takes you straight to the online archive, and it's always going to be up there, and people can get inspired by it and make their way through all the poems. And
yeah, come check it out.
Yeah. So another silver lining of the pandemic, it forced us to like create something finally after 10 years that would be able to communicate what it is we've been doing all this time to everybody. Yeah,
should we turn to
more Makeready?
We can do a little more Makeready. We can also just turn to questions.
Yeah, I'll finish doing the Makeready while questions get asked. How about that?
Can you hear us?
And then we can do another split screen.
Can you hear us? I don't think you can. You don't have your own sound on.
Yeah.
Jenny, can you hear us? What if we all make the big on the island, Gilligan's Island motion?
Hey, how's it going, Rosie?
Oh, she can hear us.
We can, yes.
Yay. Okay, there was
And
a
we
question
can
earlier. Somebody
So you couldn't hear us earlier, right?
I know, I don't think we could hear you earlier.
No, you didn't have your sound on or something, because you asked for questions and Tom was reading one, but you couldn't hear it.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, well.
That's all right. You guys were given a great presentation, but there was a question earlier from Joyce about one of the poetry broadsheets that you did, if that was all printed on a single letterpress sheet, or how did you do kind of the areas of colors that were kind of surrounding the poem?
Yeah, so they are all entirely letterpress printed, but they are a combination. People use wood cuts, wood type. This is like wood type that's been turned over and printed on the back. And then also photopolymer is used sometimes for type, and also hand set metal and wood type. But this is an example of a paper cut that I believe was then pressure printed, but it's all letterpress printed on a letterpress press. Does that answer the question?
Yeah,
So
I was
this is something
wondering.
that would be like many passes. There would be like the type pass, then the outline of the paper cut, and then pressure printing for the blue, and then another pass of pressure printing for these like gradient back color for the
What
type.
do you mean by pressure printing? Are you printing on a letterpress or on the Chandler Price press?
Yeah, I think, yeah. Jenny's
So,
gonna come see me today.
I'm just,
Yeah,
what
so
is pressure?
printing- Another word for pressure printing is indirect printing. And it's where you have something in the bed of the press, like a solid, and then with varying amounts of Makeready behind the cylinder, behind the draw sheet, you can make some things print and some things not. So it's a way to make a printing plate out of whatever's behind your press sheet. It's kind of interesting. Did that make sense?
Yeah, I've done like monoprints on my Vandercook, and it's kind of a similar thing. I did it on a sheet of lino, like just a flat sheet of lino, but the pressure is so different on that. And the lino is not 100% flat. So you get areas that print and areas that don't print. But I'm assuming you're making a specific kind of place where you'll get a bit of an impression and get a solid, consistent color, right? Because you want it to be consistent.
Yeah, but one of the nice things about pressure printing is that dreaminess of it. It's not as crisp as if you were directly printing a relief surface. There is this kind of soft edge to it that a lot of people like. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And was the paper cut done the same way, or is it a different process?
It does look like it was pressure printed because I can see the texture of the base that was used as the printing surface.
Oh my God, the Bad Bunny is so
Pretty
cute by the
amazing.
stop sign.
Yeah,
He's so cute. Bad
so
Bunny.
wonderful. And I'm really sorry about the sound. We were just so careful to try to mute one and then have the other one not muted, but I'm sorry we missed your questions earlier.
No problem.
Jenny, I have a question. You were saying the Z fold for One River was
Yes.
difficult for the printer. What are some of the things that make it difficult for the printer to get it right?
Well, it's like over 5 feet long. And so that's not your typical brochure. And so any like length disparity between the scores just gets magnified. And,
I get it. Okay. I
yeah,
get it.
so if you really need it to be square when it's all folded up, there's a lot of press checking you need to do to make sure that it's actually going to wind up that way.
Oh, that's so cool. And the press checking is for the scoring or for the
There was
print, or
press
for both?
checking. I was there every step of the process. So press check for the printing, press check for the cutting, press check for the scoring, press check for the post trimming. Just all these things, all these steps that
That's
need
so cool.
double checking. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, and I highly, highly recommend Security Press. I see Dan Schaefer is also on the call, and Dan is the designer for Chin Music Press, and Chin Music actually now has the book, One River. They did a reprint after our Kickstarter version. And he got the joy of doing everything that I did. So Dan, I hope it went more smoothly the second time around when you had to deal with it.
It was a dream project to inherit. It was so cool because everything was figured out. So you guys did great work on it.
Yeah.
Does
And
Chin Music, does Chin Music also do, I don't know what you call it. Is it more commercial projects?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
that's right. Because that's what I've seen. I didn't know you guys did both. Cool.
But oh my gosh, they're beautiful, beautiful, beautiful books. I think Dan has my dream job too. But I want to say, speaking of dream jobs, the type of work we got to do with Claudia in envisioning how One River, 1,000 Voices was going to behave, figuring out how we were going to do 2 editions at once, doing the whole press check with security, like that was so much fun. And Partners in Print wants more projects like that. So if I can have one takeaway for this group is like, bring us more amazing, challenging type letterpress / artist book projects. We'd love to do more.
Kind of like along those lines, I was wondering how, like, as a kind of decentralized studio with like various places where you can produce things or artists in different locations, what kind of like logistical coordination do you do to actually produce something like the physical object in the end when it's usually such a hands-on process like you described and demonstrated? Is it like a lot of Zoom sessions or constant communications, or how do you actually facilitate that?
I think that we're really lucky in that we're always like teaching and learning from one another. And so the folks who have the presses and are housing them currently have a wealth of knowledge on how to use those presses. And so if someone wants to come and print there, they are like in really good hands in terms of having someone to partner with and problem solve with and learn from. But we share knowledge really readily. And in terms of the logistics, oh, look at that. So much better. In terms of logistics of just getting the presses everywhere, letterpress artists are probably the most hyper organized and type A personality people like within the artist community that I've worked with. Book artists would also give us a run for their money. So there are a lot of spreadsheets involved to coordinate the moving of all of that, to make sure that everybody had something that was like a functional community shop, and that they had enough equipment that would be useful for people to come and use.
Yeah, we were thoughtful about how to distribute the equipment to fill in any gaps. And also everybody who's fostering PIP equipment is also really open to sharing it. And that was really important to us, that in this weird transition time, that the presses would absolutely continue to be used.
Yeah, we wanted to continue that culture of just having really welcoming spaces. That was one of the coolest things about having that shop at SBC, was it was just a hub for our community and a place that anyone could come and learn and be welcome and feel at home. And so we want these foster press homes to also have that same energy.
I'm kind of curious what your plans are for the future when things start to open up again and in-person things can happen again, and you can have like gallery spaces and storefront spaces and book fairs, for example.
Yeah, we'll definitely be tabling at the Seattle Art Book Fair. Gosh, I mean, we have our hands full now, you know, coordinating lots of printers on lots of meaningful projects, and wonderful things coming up in the year to come. Collaborating with other organizations like the Hamilton Wood Type Museum and let's see, Ladies of Letterpress. So our contacts that we've made over the years have really been sustaining us during this weird time and keeping us busy. But the long-term goal is to be able to afford our own space again someday. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think there's this opportunity that comes from moving out from under SVC's umbrella and existing as a nonprofit, in that we can choose how we operate, what our operational model looks like. And so we're really doing that with an eye for accessibility and inclusivity, and making sure that we're offering programming that is free, that is discounted, that we're compensating our instructors fairly, all of those things. And so it's more important for us to take smaller steps forward in a sustainable and thoughtful manner than to like take maybe some big leaps and sacrifice some of those core values that we have. So that's a learning process for us. And I really welcome like any insights from this audience in particular of how you've evolved over this past year, and any tips. You know, we're here to learn. We're not the first organization to have to do this. So we welcome any advice.
I have no advice, but I want to just show people, you've seen this, that I had the opportunity to write about PIPs for Alta Journal in California. So this is the spread that shows Jenny at work.
Yeah, right where we're standing.
Mhm.
That's great. Yeah, the rollout of Partners in Print, we are so fortunate to have had the support of people like John Barry, just people who knew us back when and saw this insane transition that we're trying to undertake and spotlighted us. You know, I think this Seattle Art Book Fair is another example of that. It's just really wonderful to get the word out about what we're trying to achieve, and that we're still here. We just have a different name. Yeah. Thank you, John, for bringing that up. Yeah. Studio Work Exchange. Yeah, so that's actually what we're doing for the Hamilton Wood Type Museum for their Ways Goose, which is their annual conference that they do in November. They have this amazing
Hamilton, Wisconsin.
No, Hamilton
it's-
is the name of
it's-
the
in Two Rivers,
company.
Wisconsin.
Yeah. It's in Two Rivers, Wisconsin. But so they have this epic print swap. So hundreds of printers show up at this wood type museum, and they just swap prints. Like they don't even pay each other. It's just like swapping prints. And their conference is going to be virtual. And so they're having Partners in Print organize the print swap this year. So we'll figure out a way to make that feel just as fun and you know, like networky, like it feels at the actual conference.
I love that comment about Ontario too, because I know Ontario has an incredible letterpress community there. And part of the long distance letterpress classes we've been having is that we've had folks from all over the world join, including from Nova Scotia. So we're really excited about the possibility of bridging some of these more global letterpress communities.
Is there any chance to bring back the Steamroller Smackdown, the crowd favorite?
Oh yeah. Actually, I was talking with the folks who organized the South Lake Union block party. That, you know, they won't be having one this summer. But, you know, it is one of the coolest things about that event. And it gets, you know, it just brings everybody to the yard. Like you get an asphalt roller and you get a bunch of designers together making giant, you know, 3 foot by 4 foot linoleum cuts. It was just a really wonderful thing. And it was a great thing for the School of Visual Concepts. So we'll see, you know, in the future if we could resurrect it. If not, there are a lot of places that do that. You know, the Tacoma Ways Goose, when they're doing that in person, they do steamroller printing. There's a Kitsap Ways Goose that is centered around steamroller printing. So there's
The Center for the Book in San Francisco also does it.
Yeah, and they were they were the original. That was our inspiration. Yeah, their Roadworks event was our inspiration for the Steamroller Smackdown.
So it'll be a race to see who gets to do the first live steamroller event after the pandemic.
Right.
I think in Chicago there's one too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but I think Tom is particularly nostalgic because he has participated in it on behalf of Paperhammer. And I think, Tom, you guys won multiple trophies, didn't you?
It was actually before my time.
Oh, okay.
Brian Pollack spearheaded those, who's also been an instructor at SVC, I think, in some capacity. But it's always been such a fun event to participate in. And it's so cool to see people that show up at the block party for the music and the festival stuff. And they're like, hold up, there's a whole crazy letter, like a steamroller printing things. And you never know like who's watching or how they get excited about it or involved in it later. So it's always been a fun community project.
Yeah. Yasmin is asking about the Hamilton print swap. So I would go to the, well, maybe get on Hamilton Wood Type Museum's mailing list, and then you'll know when registration opens up for their November Ways Goose, and then you'll get invited that way.
We also have our own newsletter. So if you want to keep up to date on what our upcoming program is going to be and how that's going to evolve. We'll be pushing all of that out through our newsletter. So feel free to sign up for that.
Yeah, Jamie, thanks for posting that.
Yes, thank
Perfect.
you.
Perfect timing.
Doing our jobs for us.
Yeah, our newsletter, we never spam you. We try to do it just once a month, and we always write about something. I think the next newsletter is coming out June 1st, and we're writing about words of courage, and also talking about the upcoming long distance letterpress classes. I don't know if you posted the link yet, but we have a long distance letterpress class, yes, about Makeready. And one of the things I'm struggling with right now on this print is I adjusted the packing, which is how much impression the print gets. And one thing that you'll learn in this class is when you adjust the thickness of the cylinder, you're actually adjusting the length of the paper and the speed that it travels. And so when I adjusted the packing to try to get everything printing more solidly, it also messed with my registration. And so that's the type of thing that this class would teach you about, those of you who have letterpress studios at home.
Jenny, do you have to know much about letterpress to take that particular class?
I mean, I think if you were letterpress curious, you would still get a lot out of the class.
Well, you know I am, right? So,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
I'll try to see you then.
See, does anyone else have any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and jump in, or leave them in the chat.
One question I have, sorry I'm in a mask because I have to wear one at Cornish here, but when you guys envision your ideal space in the future, what does that look like to you? Have you had conversations about what that might be? Just so that we can all have our eyes open for you?
Oh, thank you. So nice. Well, so we're hoping the space would be free. We're hoping it's permanent, because nobody wants to, move this more than you have to. We've got, like a dozen presses and tons of type. And, I still haven't recovered from last summer and moving it all out of there. So permanence would be great. We think it's, literal tons. And we think it's really important that there be some kind of storefront presence. We've had both. When we first started out at SVC in 2001, we were hidden up on the second floor of their building, and which was a real shame. You had to actually go up into their space to see what we were doing. And then our second space at SVC was storefront, and right in the middle of Amazon campus. And so people were walking by all the time, and that juxtaposition of this beautiful sculptural equipment and people doing things with their hands, and our environment in Seattle was actually really powerful. And I think it really helped give us traction. So we've learned from experience that having that window to the outside and letting passersby see what we're doing is, that would be really nice to have too.
It was impossible to walk past there and not go, oh.
Yeah.
Even if you're on your way to SVC, you'd still have that response.
Yeah, it was a lovely window into our shop. Yeah, thanks for asking, Dan. That was such a dreamy question. Yeah, so if anybody wants, if anybody has space that they're downsizing, or, has some extra space laying around, let us know. And another thing that's important is that it be accessible. Like, we think it's important that it be accessible by public transportation. We might be able to get space in a neighborhood really easily. Right now we're in Magnolia, and security press is in Magnolia, but there is really crappy public transportation to Magnolia. So I don't think we would be exploring that. So, you know, a place that would be accessible to all people. Yeah.
Rosie coming in with other dreamy ideas, the old Bon Marché storefront windows. Oof, what a dream.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, keep in touch and follow us. And I hope you'll cheer us on as we're, you know, figuring this out. You know, we're less than a year old as a nonprofit, and we have a lot to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reach
a lot
out
to figure
with
out.
all of your ideas, all of anything that you think we could partner on. We're really excited to hear.
Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time to present everything and talk about your experiences and show off a functioning letterpress, producing an honest to goodness Makeready poster. We realized that we've never actually defined what a Makeready is. I think when we talked about how to name the event, we realized, I mean, the idea behind a Makeready makes a lot of sense for what the event is that we're trying to put together. But the words are just catchy enough that we felt like we didn't really have to over explain it either. So it was really cool to actually see one being made and have it talked about in kind of like more metaphorical context too.
We live and breathe it.
That's right. Did anyone else have any last questions, or else we can wrap up and get ready for Dan's talk at 1 o'clock with Cornish College of the Arts? If not, then thank you again so much. And we'll post links to this video as well as all the other videos from other sessions, hopefully as soon as tomorrow. So thank you guys again so much.
Thank you for having
Yeah.
us.
Thank you.